that was a lovely cup of tea. Okay then, so, time for a new deck profile. So let's ask a question. Shaddoll Dogma. This is supposed to be Shaddoll Dogma, right? Well, let's just correct this real quickly. You get the hell out of here, and you can sod off as well. How's it going, everyone? I'm Raging Raven, and this is another deck profile, and this time I'm giving you a list of Shaddoll Dogma. Or Shaddoll Dogmatika, Shaddoll Dogma, whichever you want to use, I don't really care. So, unique thing about this deck. I wanted to build the Dogmas with Shaddolls as soon as I realized that they could be a really good utility and a really good engine to work with Shaddolls' initial game plan being the grind game. If you look back all the way back at the Duelist Alliance format, Shaddolls were a very resource-heavy grinding deck. They were built for longevity purposes, and that's what I loved about the deck so damn much. So I figured to myself I might as well just try out some builds and see what I can come up with, and even though the strategy is one-to-one similar, that doesn't mean that the deck is still non-functionable all the same, so I'm just going to shut up now and I'm just going to show you guys my deck profile. It's a reasonable engine for the Shaddolls to start things off, as I got 2 copies of Shaddoll Wendy, 2 copies of Shaddoll Squamata, 1 copy of Hedgehog, 1 copy of Ariel, 1 copy of Beast, and 1 copy of Dragon. So 8 Shaddolls in total, and I'm pretty much okay with this ratio. Both Wendy and Squamata search out your entire deck. Hedgehog practically does the exact same thing, but in order to fulfill combos you only need him once. Same with Ariel and Beast, and Dragon usually helps with getting rid of some pesky back row cards. So it's all good in the long term with what the main deck Shaddolls can do. And when I say search out the entire deck, what I mean is this. Wendy actually sets a Shaddoll monster from your deck whenever she is sent to the graveyard, whereas Squamata acts like a pseudo upstart goblin, where you can simply send a Shaddoll card from your deck to graveyard almost instantly when he's sent to the graveyard. Depending on how Hedgehog is used, Hedgehog can either add a Shaddoll monster if he was sent to the graveyard by a card effect, or if he was flipped face up, you get to add a Shaddoll spell or trap. Everyone is fully aware with what Ariel can do. When she's flipped, she specials a Shaddoll from your banish zone, and when she is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, she can pretty much banish 3 cards as a whole from either graveyards. And Beast is a draw card. I already mentioned Dragon a little bit earlier on, so I'm just going to continue with everything else. So my ratios for Dogmatikas are a little bit bizarre at the moment, but that's mainly because, 1, these are the only cards I can get from what I currently have at the moment, so you're going to have to forgive me on synopsis. And 2, I'm waiting for 1 more Dogma card to be released in the following set to work along with this. So with that being said, I'm of course running 3 copies of the Searching Girl herself. Oh dear. Dogmatika Eslisa, the Virtuous Hammer Girl. Now, of course, a Hammer Girl is really powerful in this deck. She pretty much allows herself to search any of the Dogmatika monsters from your deck directly to your hand, which practically makes things really powerful in amongst itself, and she special summons herself to the field when there's already an extra deck monster out on the field. To accompany this, for the time being, I'm only running the 1 of Fleur de Lis, the Knighted. Fleur de Lis is pretty much similar in the fact of how she can special summon herself. However, Fleur de Lis can summon herself in a way that is a quick effect, so it can happen during the opponent's turn as well as your own turn. And at the same time, when she is summoned, she negates something on resolution. Both of these cards are pretty much ridiculous for their own good, and they can easily help to gain some early advantage, even with cards like Winter on board. Moving along with the extra aspects of the deck now, I'm running 2 copies of Mathematician. I didn't necessarily see myself needing a 3rd, to be quite frankly honest. Like, this deck is already tight in amongst itself, so I was kind of itching on trying to find some decent form of space, and it seems like 2 was the suitable number for me for this card. But with that being said, I wouldn't even bump it up to 3 anyways, because I don't want too many normal summons in the deck. When the deck has too many normal summons, especially with a Shaddoll monster, you kinda don't want to see too many normal summons and not enough special summons. Now, that is a little bit strange, especially when it comes to a card like Mathematician, but when you think about it, when I already have 8 Shaddolls in my deck already, and these two sitting on top of that, making it 10, you can kind of see where I'm coming with this, especially with a format as what we're in right now. A quick deviation to hand traps before I get started with a spell and traps. I'm running 3 Cypher Aim Gamma along with a 1 Cypher Aim Driver. Look, they negate monster effects, and I can't necessarily blame them enough for just stopping and negating monster effects, simple as that. As well, at the same time, we got the common hand trap of choice this format being Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. It's kind of funny that this card is now back in the meta once again, to be quite frankly honest, but I honestly don't blame it for returning into the meta. It's still a good card for what it can do in amongst itself. Just being able to drop herself as soon as your opponent activates a card or effect, to simply destroy it, like, I don't see why that is not a reason why you should play this card. It's legitimately great, this format. There's so many cards that need to remain on field to resolve their effects in today's metagame, and at the same time, you can actually, if you fail to find a way to negate S0, you can still drop this to hopefully blow it up. I'm hoping I'm correct on that department, because I don't know if S0 has any form of protection or not. But heck, if I'm wrong and S0 does have any protection, then please let me know in the comments. So, moving along with the spells, we have triple copies of Shaddoll Fusion. It's the baseline Shaddoll Fusion spell card, so why would you get rid of it? It's just ridiculous in how busted it is. And the former OTK enabler, 3 copies of Shaddoll Fusion. Shaddoll Fusion pretty much sends from deck to graveyard as part of the effect if your opponent has an extra deck monster on the board or not. And Shaddoll Fusion is just pretty much their quick play regular fusion spell. So it's very straightforward in what both of these cards can do. They're powerful through and through. And I kind of find it weird when I don't see people play free. I haven't seen a single person that hasn't played free yet in any Shaddoll build, but trust me, you need 3 of each. So earlier on I mentioned with the Dogmatika cards that it was mainly because of what I can get a hold of at any form of given time. This is the reason why. I'm only running 2 Nadir Servant, primarily because I can only pick up 2. If I had room in my deck, I'd definitely swap something out of my deck for a 3rd, but since I only have 2 on me, I'm running 2. But with that being said though, this card is still ludicrous. It sends a monster from your extra deck to the graveyard as part of its requirement to search any Dogma card from your deck to your hand. Must I explain why that's bloody ridiculous? The Dogmatika cards have this little downside where you can't use monsters from your extra deck for the remainder of a turn after you use them, but most of the time you're going to be summoning them either before or during your opponent's turn, so you don't need to worry upon that front. So, continuing along, we have 3 of the Called by the Graves. Ash Blossom is still a card that can be seen in this format, so I'd want to run that just to be on the safe side. Plus, Effect Veiler and other Ghost Ogres can be a little bit of a nuisance as well. So I figured, hey ho, might as well just throw in the Called by the Grave. For staples now, I'm running the 1 Monster Reborn because it's Monster Reborn. The 1 Foolish Burial, primarily because it sends stuff from deck to graveyard instantaneously to get every form of combo going. And here's something fascinating. If you've been in touch with my Discord server or Artists with a Throw Discord server, then you'd notice that I pulled a very, very expensive card. So I thought to myself, screw it, I might as well just run it. I'm running 3 Tactical Talents. Now for traps. I've only got 5 traps in a deck, but they all serve the same general purpose. Shaddoll Schism and Red Shaddoll Incarnation. Incarnation has been around for quite a fair bit, so we already know what it does. Its base effect is basically a trap version of the Shallow Grave for your Shaddoll monsters only. As for Schism, it's a continuous fusion card, believe it or not. The fact that you could use any of your cards in your graveyard to summon out any of the Shaddoll monsters to help just get shit off of the field is absolutely absurd, especially when it comes to the factor that you can absolutely summon out Winder on your opponent's turn to not only stop them in their tracks, but send some dark monster that they may have already summoned onto the field. You could use Construct to help get rid of some other stuff. The card's brilliant, alright? Finally, for the hand traps for the deck, 3 Infinite Impermanence. Now, to be fair, I have heard that Effect Veiler can be better in some circumstances, but Effect Veiler can be called by the Graved. So I thought to myself, I'd rather prefer to use this. Just in hindsight, if I get one of those instances where I go second, and at the same time, if I do go first, this is far better to use than Effect Veiler, primarily because I can just negate a column with spells along with this card. Okay, extra deck now. We are running 3 copies of El Shaddoll Construct. Absolutely fantastic card. There's no reason it needs to be explained of why this card is run as a free of in any and all Shaddoll builds, well, except for the ones that have hybrided with other decks, but still, free construct for any build that's close enough to pure. It's just fantastic. Full on Shekanaga, mainly because of the factor that I have mathematicians in the deck and I can easily just bring it out. Next up, I'm running Apcolone for the search factor. I might bump this up to 2 actually, it all depends, but still, Apcolone is just really good in how it can help the deck regardless of just setting up plays alone. So, who knows, it might become a more useful card in the future. And finally, the 2 windows. I don't see my games dragging long enough to warrant a 3rd window, and even if I do, they usually are in killing range of cards like El Shaddoll Construct or even Fleur de Lis for that matter. Link monsters now. I'm running Borrelsword Dragon because I do not have access code Talker. But still, it's Borrelsword Dragon. I'm also running Topologic Trishbania as well, primarily because of the factor that it's ludicrous. Trishbania has a very straightforward effect. What it can do is that if a monster is special summoned to a zone it points to, it banishes every spell and trap card on both players' field, while stealing 500 damage to the opponent in the process. Let me just have a quick look. Yep. 500 damage to your opponent in the process for each one they control. So, Trishbania is just fantastic. Nightmare Unicorn is a good link free to help bounce things back. Nightmare Unicorn is just good for zeroing in on singular targets, whilst Trishbania is just good enough for just getting rid of everything that the opponent has in terms of spell and traps. I should possibly mention that the reason why I'm running Trishbania in this extra deck is because my locals is very reliant on a lot of spell and traps and back row, so I thought to myself, might as well for my local standards, put in Trishbania over something else. For 1 IP Masquerena, look, it's just good to use Masquerena to go into something like Trishbania and to just simply blow out everything as soon as it is on the field. It just helps make things a whole lot more better. Cross Sheep! Look, if you have fusions in your extra deck and you're not using Cross Sheep, then you're playing a game horribly wrong. Now here's a tech that I thought I might as well just try out. I'm running Proxy F Magician. Proxy F Magician is pretty much Poly on legs, however he can only do it with monsters on the field. So it's not necessarily the best sort of link to, but I thought to myself for continuing on purposes, it may be a good card to use nonetheless. Finally, we have Exceed monsters. Now, these 2 are going to be more valuable when the next Dogmatika card comes out, but at the moment it's just 1 of each of Dingirsu and Hope Harbinger. Construct is level 8, Fleur de Lis is level 8, I figured to myself, hey ho, might as well just run some rank kits, and soon enough we're going to be getting another level 8 Dogmatika, so why the hell not? So, that is it for my Shaddoll Dogma deck. My current Shaddoll list as a whole, it's not necessarily supposed to be the same Dogmatika deck that everyone sees out there, thank you dog. But this deck is primarily built for the purpose of just utilising Shaddoll's original strategy, and I think it does it fairly well. Through a fair amount of testing from what I've done, it actually does hold up. I misplayed quite a fair bit, but hey ho, that happens when you're testing 2 new engines to be put together. But even with those misplays, I still managed to get the victory, so that's the deck. If you guys have enjoyed, thank you dog. I'll try and do this last bit with him in the background. If you guys have enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, hit that notification bell so that you can know when I upload practically anything of everything, because I don't just do deck profiles, I do openings whenever I get a box opening. I'm starting to do voice acting reels, and I'm also doing paleontology and Yu-Gi-Oh! And pretty soon, a passion of mine, Monster Hunter. So until next time guys, I bid you all adieu.